Hey guys, welcome back. And today we are going to discuss about social learning and cognitive theory. So we will see the different steps and how it is happening. Social learning theory, developed by Albert Bandura, says that people learn by watching others. We can learn how to act, what to think, or how to feel just by observing someone else without having to try it to ourselves. This learning happens through watching, copying, and paying attention to what happens to others after they behave a certain way. Albert Bandura's social cognitive theory proposes that human behavior is the product of interaction between personal factors, behavioral patterns, and environmental influence. So the behavior is shaped by a constant loop between you, your actions, and your surrounding, or your personal cognitive beliefs, what you do, and your environment. Cognition, that means the outcome expectancies or the beliefs about the consequences of action, and your confidence or self efficacy play a critical role in guiding behavior and modifying the environment. We learn by watching others, and our confidence, that is nothing but self efficacy and expected results, drive our choices. Our environment can help or hurt our efforts. And individuals are not passive recipients of environmental forces. They actively shape and are shaped by their surroundings through ongoing interpretation, choice, and adjustment of behavior. Albert Bandura believed that people learn by watching others. To show this, he did a famous test called Bobo dog experiment. In this experiment, children, adults children and adults were participated. And in this experiment, children watched adults play with a big inflatable doll called Bobo. Some adults were very aggressive and they were hitting and shouting at the doll while playing. But some others played very nicely, very calm. Later, when the children were given the same Bobo doll, the one who saw the aggressive adults were more likely to copy the same aggressive behavior. And the one who saw the calm people were more likely to copy the calm behavior. They showed that the children and people in general learn by watching what others do and often copy it, especially if they see that person being rewarded or not punished. And Bandura noted a book called, or he wrote a book called Social Learning Theory in 1977, which explained all of this in more detail. So in this image, you can see that Bobo doll experiment. So in the first session, what they're doing means the adults are doing or playing with the doll. Some are very calm, some are very aggressive. So in second one, you can see how these children are behaving after seeing the aggressive uh, adults play. So they are repeating the same thing. So when we go to in detail way, Bandura identified 4 cognitive processes that must occur for observational learning to take place. So learning by watching is not a simple thing. There are different steps. There are different cognitive processes. Basically, there are 4 identified cognitive processes according to Albert Bandura. This process highlights how learning is not automatic, but rather depends on learners' capacity and incentive to engage with observed behavior. So, according to him, learning is not an automatic process. This include attention, retention, motor reproduction, and motivation. So these are all the 4 identified cognitive processes that must occur for observational learning according to Albert Bandura. So in this image, you can see again attention, retention, motor reproduction, and motivation. Attention is the stimuli focus. Retention means rehearse, encode. Motor reproduction is practice, feedback, and motivation, reward, and reinforce. So these are all the 4 cognitive process which will take place when we learn something, according to Albert Bandura. So we will study in detail now. Attention, that is the first process. The individual needs to pay attention to the behavior and its consequences and form a representation of behavior. The attention of a person involves characteristic of the specific model or the person who we are observing. This means that the model must be salient or noticeable. If the model means the person or their activities must be attractive, prestigious, or appears to be particularly competent, then we, human being or the children, will pay more attention. And especially if the model seems more like yourself or ourselves, we pay again more attention. So that is the first stage of your learning by observing. Second stage is retention. Storing the observed behavior, and it can stay for a long period of time in our mind. Imitation is not always immediate. This process is often mediated by symbols. Symbols means anything that stands for something else. This can be word, picture, or even gesture of the specific model. For symbols to be effective, they must be related to the behavior being learned and must be understood by the observer. That's why when you teach something to children, it must be attractive, it must be salient, the symbol should be noticeable. Then it will get stick into their brain gradually. And he specifically mentioned that imitation is not always an immediate thing. You need to give time also for attention and imitation. So that is the second stage of social cognitive or social learning theory. Attention, retention, then next is motor reproduction. In social learning theory, okay, motor reproduction refers to the process where an observer, that means we, attempt to physically replicate a behavior what we have observed. This involves translating the learned information, that means a retention, into action, requiring to the observer to have the physical capabilities and skills necessary to mimic the mode. So motor reproduction means the active action stage of social learning. So after attention, retention will take place. After retention, we will go to motor reproduction. Means it refers to the process where an observer in the sense child or we people in general, attempt to physically replicate a behavior, what we have observed or what the children observed. And we will at last go to the last stage of learning, that is motivation. The observer must be motivated to perform the behavior. This motivation can come from a variety of sources such as a desire to achieve a goal or avoid a punishment. And Bandura proposed that motivation has three main components. They are expectancy, value, and effective reaction. Expectancy refers to the belief that one can successfully perform the behavior. Value refers to the importance of the goal that the behavior is meant to achieve. Effective reaction refers to the emotions associated with the behavior. So these are all the four stages of social learning according to Albert Bandura. And if a behavior is associated with positive emotions, it is more likely to be learned than the behavior associated with negative emotion. So if the behavior is associated with positive emotion, it is more likely to learn that a behavior associated with negative emotions. Reinforcement and punishment in each play an important role in motivation. Individual must expect to receive the same positive reinforcement, that is called vicarious reinforcement, for imitating the observed behavior that they have seen the model receiving. So the key principles of learning theory are observational learning, that means people learn by watching others, especially those they look up to. Second thing is modeling, learning happening when someone copies the behavior of a role model or someone they respect. Vicarious reinforcement or punishment, that means people learn by seeing what happened to others. If someone is rewarded, they may want to do the same. If someone is punished, they may avoid it. Attention, to learn, a person must focus on the person they are watching and they are doing. Retention, the person needs to remember what they saw to be able to use it later. Motor reproduction, the person must be able to physically do the behavior they saw. Motivation, the people need a reason to copy the behavior, like expecting a reward or wanting. So from this, we can come to a conclusion that learning by observing is not an automatic thing. It takes time. There are different cognitive processes are there in this learning by observing activity or learning by observing process. Bandura expanded his theory into social cognitive theory, from social learning theory to social cognitive theory in 1986, which places greater emphasis on cognitive factors such as self-efficacy, that means self-confidence, self-regulation, and reciprocal relationship between behavior, environment, and personal factors. Social learning theory proposed by Albert Bandura emphasizes the importance of observing, modeling, and imitating the behaviors, attitudes, and emotional reaction of others. So Bandura expanded the 1997 social learning theory into social cognitive theory in 1986, which places a greater focus on cognitive factors such as self-confidence, self-regulation, and reciprocal relationship between the behavior, environment, and personal factors. In social learning theory, Albert Bandura, that is in 1997 social learning theory, agrees with the behavior learning theory of classical conditioning and operant conditioning. Hope you know what is classical conditioning and operant conditioning. So classical conditioning means learning by association, like listening the bell. Okay, food is there, like Pavlov's experiment. Okay, dog experiment. Operant conditioning, learning by consequences like reward or punishment. Also, he adds two important ideas to this thing. They are mediating process occur between stimuli and response, and behavior is learned from environment through the process of observational learning. So what is mediational process? We learn by watching others, but we don't copy right away. First, we think about what we saw. If it's useful, safe, or worth copy. This thinking step is called mediational process. It happens between seeing the action and deciding to do it or not. This is a simplified form of social learning theory, guys. In social learning theory, Albert Bandura agrees with the behavioral learning theory, okay, of classical conditioning and operant conditioning. Classical conditioning is saying that learning by association. Operant conditioning is talking about learning by consequences. Also, he adds some important points to that. That means two important points to that. In social learning theory, they are mediating process and behavior is learned from environment. Mediating process means we learn by watching others, but we don't copy right away. Okay. First, we think about what he saw, and if it's useful, safe, and worth copying, we will copy. And this thinking step is called mediational process. Okay. And there is the diagrammatic representation of the theory. Then examples of social learning theory, a case study I'm giving here. From this, you will get more understanding about how we can link this theory to real life incident. Imagine a case study of a patient struggling with medication adherence after a recent heart attack. Patient had a heart attack and the patient is struggling with medication adherence, means intake of medication. Through social learning theory, you might discover that the patient has observed other family members struggling with medication adherence due to the side effects of or forgetting to take pills. Cognitive theory might reveal that the patient is experiencing optimism bias, believing their heart condition is not serious and they can manage it without medication. Okay, so how we can apply cognitive theory or social learning theory. Okay, and how we can change the maladaptive behavior into adaptive behavior, that we are going to see now. So what kind of intervention we can include? Social support, that is a major thing. Connecting the patient with the support group of patients who have successfully managed their condition. So the model is not a good model there. That's what the patient is struggling with the medication adherence, because they observed, or he or she observed, someone who is struggling with the medication adherence, struggling while taking medication. So the model who is there, or the model he or she observed, is a bad model. So in that case, what we can do means connect the patient with support group of patients who have successfully managed their condition by taking medication, by following the treatment modalities. Then environmental changes. Providing the patient with medication reminders such as pill box or alarm app to help them to remember to take their medication. So we have to change the environment. I have told you already that environment is a playing role in learning process, social learning process. So first thing is give a good, comfortable place, then give a good model, like someone who is successful in the heart attack treatment process and make them to meet the specific person, explain, have a chat with the specific person, and connecting the patient with the support group of patients who have successfully managed their condition. Then cognitive restructuring. That is social cognitive theory, helping the patient to challenge their behavior that their heart condition is not serious and emphasizing the importance of medication adherence in preventing future health problems. By applying these principles, you can analyze the healthcare study through a lens of social learning and cognitive theory, gain deeper understanding of individuals' experience, and develop more effective theory. So in this slide, you are seeing that how we will apply social learning and social cognitive theory in real life experiment or real life situation. So patient is struggling with medication adherence after the recent heart attack. So the patient model was not a good model. So the patient model was not effective, not attractable, not salient, not useful. So that made him to stop taking the medication. So in that case, through social learning, social cognitive theory, we can change the maladaptive behavior of the patient to adaptive behavior by providing proper social support, by providing comfortable environment, and also reconstructuring the cognitive behavior. Then what we have to do in detail, okay, analyze the case study through social learning theory. So now we are analyzing this case through social learning theory. So what we have to do first means you have to clearly define the specific health issue. So define the health issue. So what is the health issue here? Heart attack. Then target the individual. That is the second thing. Then analyze the case through social learning theory. Explore how individual has observed or learned about the health issue. For example, like through family or himself, etc., etc. Then check the individual has modeled the behavior of others either positively or negatively. So first you have to observe the patient, then you have to check where is the model, what type of model is good or bad, okay, modeled in a positive way or negative way. Then assess the self-efficacy of the patient, that means the confidence of the patient, okay, or the beliefs of the patient. So assess the self-efficacy means the individual believes in their ability to successfully manage the health issue or change their behavior, whether they can cope up with the change or that. You have to assess the capacity of the patient. Then consider how vicarious reinforcement or punishment the individual or consider how the individual's observations of others being rewarded or punished for their healthy behaviors have influenced their own choice. So how we will analyze this case through social learning theory means first you have to clearly define the specific health issue, then you have to target the individual, then you have to observe, then you have to check the individual's modeling, then you have to assess the self-efficacy, and at last you have to consider how vicarious reinforcement or punishment is happening and how the individual is taking it. Then the same case, if you analyze through social cognitive theory, means you have to analyze the cognitive biases, like identify any cognitive biases or error that might be influencing, like optimism, like if I take the medication, I will die, or my pain will increase. So that is the first thing. Then thought pattern. You have to examine the thought pattern of the individual and belief about their health issues. Then self-regulation. Assess the individual's ability to regulate their thoughts and feelings. And then develop intervention based on the analysis like social support, environmental changes, cognitive restructuring, and self-monitoring. So in social cognitive theory, we will focus more on the cognitive aspects and thought pattern of the patient rather than the modeling. So this is about social cognitive theory analysis. And in healthcare setting, how we can apply social learning theory and social cognitive theory means to effectively apply social learning and social cognitive theories in healthcare. Okay, focus on how an individual's learning and behavior are influenced by social interactions, environmental factors, and cognitive process. You have to focus on three things: their social interaction, the environmental factors, which is around and cognitive process of the person. Identify the individual's observed behavior, models, and any cognitive process influencing their health choices. Consider how social support system, environmental influences, and cognitive biases might contribute to their health decision. All right, guys. So this is about social learning and social cognitive theory. So according to social learning theory, learning will happen by observing others, but it is not an automatic process. We will go through different cognitive process like attention, retention, motor activities, and motivation. So we need a positive motivation always, a positive reinforcement, or we need a good model, especially when we apply this to children. We have to provide a good model. The model should be attractive, or the activity should be attractive. It should be salient, and it should be easy to follow. Then only they can follow, and we will get the quality in result. Also, when we apply social learning theory and social cognitive theory in healthcare setting, first what you have to understand means you have to define this health issue, then you have to target the individual, then you have to observe, okay, then you have to check what is the level of self-efficacy, okay, whether they can cope up with the situation or not, and at last you have to go for the reinforcement or punishment, whatever, that depends upon the situation. And also you have to observe the environment where the patient is living. All right, guys, so this is about social learning theory and social cognitive theory by Albert Bandura. Hope you understand, guys. Next time with other theory. Thank you so much.